Once you're ready to test an application, in this case we'll use our example CRUD application that allows us to add and delete elements to a simple list on a web page. Click on the HackTab Options dialog box. This opens up the configuration screen. Here we can specify the target domain. In this case we'll be testing the target domain CRUD. This is HTTP CRUD. Your application may be somesite.com. Go ahead and enter whatever the URL is for your page here. Open up the dialog box. In this case we'll use .*CRUD. You can change the delay between requests that are sent. On average, it takes about 100 requests to test the average input completely, and you'll see that in this video. For most web applications, a default delay of 100 milliseconds works just fine. If you have a local application or application that runs very quickly and you're sending a lot of tests, you could set this down as low as 10. If you have an application that's maybe across country or does not respond quickly, you might have to set the test delay up to 1,000 or 2,000 milliseconds so that you don't overwhelm the web server. By clicking Save, you now have stored those settings, and any request now sent to that target domain will open up the HackTab dialog box. This is the HackTab application. Here you can see every request and every parameter sent to your target domain. So in this case we have a URL CRUD with a mode equals list. We can see that here's our CRUD host, the crud.php application, and 1,500 bytes were sent with a single parameter. If we click on the expansion icon, we can see each parameter that was sent, how it's been classified as what type of parameter it is, when it was tested, what tests were sent, and what parameters have been sent. The target icon is what allows us to actually send the tests to the application for that individual parameter. What I like to do when I'm testing an application is use all the features of the application independently, and then once I've exercised them and know how they work, I use the HackTab to test all the input parameters to that feature. So in this case, we'll create a new element called element 4. The element has been added to the database. Looks like I didn't do that correctly. Let's try that again. Element 4. Create. The element 4 has been added to the database and view list. Okay. So here, if we want to delete the first element, we click on the X to delete it. The element has been removed. And now we've used all the features in this application. We've created new elements, we've looked at them, and we've deleted them. When we go back to the HackTab, we can see there are now 3 parameters that have been sent. When we open up the dialog, we can see that there's now a mode parameter, an element name parameter, and an ID parameter. Now, the important thing to note here is that all of these requests were sent to this single URL with a mode parameter. It specifies what type of function or operation you want to use. Some applications may have 3 separate URLs to do these different operations. Some applications may have a single URL with multiple modes or values for that parameter, that mode parameter. Some applications may have a variety. If you run into the situation, you can simply select this is a mode parameter. That tells it to operate in a particular mode. This is very common for stateful AJAX endpoints or REST URLs. Once you've specified that, every request now will be sent for the list mode, the add mode, and the delete mode. When you're ready to begin testing, simply click on the target icon. So in this case, we'll test the element name parameter. This will test for SQL injection, MySQL injection, reflected cross-site scripting, and local and file inclusion. So we can see we've already found an issue. What we found here is a cross-site scripting error. The cross-site scripting error is tested for by sending a test string that sends quotes, double quotes, HTML entities, and angle brackets to the remote web server for that particular input parameter, and then looks at the response codes to see if they're all encoded correctly. If you have an application that allows angle brackets or double quotes in a particular configuration but does filtering for cross-site scripting, HackTab will not alert you to that. HackTab doesn't test for bypassing cross-site scripting filters. It only tests to see if an input parameter may be vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Once you've tested that parameter, when you go back to the CRUD application, we can see that we've sent a lot of different tests. So this is why you should usually run HackTab in a sandbox environment or a stage type environment, or an isolated environment for a particular account that won't corrupt other elements of your data. You can see that it's testing for local file inclusion, Microsoft SQL Server delays, and also MySQL delays. The way that we test for SQL injection is by sending actual timed requests that should take more than 2 seconds to complete. So either benchmarks or delays on Microsoft SQL Server. We then time the responses, and if the responses for one or more of the requests is particularly long, we mark that as a hit. So we can see, coming back to the test, if we uncheck Microsoft SQL Server, and because this is a MySQL server, so we'll send fewer requests this time, and we test the ID parameter, we can see all the requests being sent here. Inside the network tab, it should take about 66 requests. And now we can see we've passed cross-site scripting, we've passed local file inclusion. SQL injection's not quite done yet. So if this is vulnerable to SQL injection, the test will usually take several seconds longer while it waits for the server to execute the benchmark test. If you're testing in a production environment, the benchmarks have been set to about 2 or 3 seconds, but that will hold up a thread on the database server for 2 or 3 seconds, and potentially, depending on the query that's being used, lock that table for 2 to 3 seconds if SQL injection is found. This usually isn't a problem in most environments, but it's something to be aware of depending on your environment. So here's our URL. If we take our proof URL and we copy that and go to a new page and paste, we can see that this request actually does take what looks to be about, 23 seconds. So depending on your application, it may take more or less time. The reason it took 23 seconds is because we sent multiple tests, and the longest one took 23 seconds because the other ones have been queued up. So we can see now every time we come back to the HackTab application for the CRUD URL, we can see that we have the cross-site scripting vulnerability, the SQL injection vulnerability, and we can see when the tests were run. This is how you usually use the HackTab. This is a quick intro. I'll be doing additional videos over the course of the week to show how you test for SQL injection, local file inclusion, and cross-site scripting in multiple scenarios, and how you tell the difference between something that's really vulnerable and something that's not vulnerable. Thanks for watching. I hope you check back soon.